Hey everybody, my name is Kaylee. If you are new here, I am a reseller and I sell clothing and shoes on multiple different platforms. I first started out on eBay and that is definitely my main source of income, but since then I have branched out into several different platforms. My second largest income comes from Poshmark. Branching out to multiple platforms can be a little bit daunting, but it's great to diversify your income and then really set yourself up to get more eyes on the same products that you already have and basically just provide more income to you. So today I want to talk about a couple different tips on how to be a successful multi-platform seller. So to start, all I can say is this is what has worked for me. It might not work for you and your business, so make sure to take care and take caution when deciding to do these things. Make sure it is the right business move for you and that you are ready to do so. Which brings me to tip number one, which is to master one platform at a time. So like I said, I started on eBay and I did that for part-time just while I worked a full-time job in the corporate world. For a couple of years, and it really took me some time to master everything, learn all the different tools that were available to me, and really had to maximize the efficiency of my business to get it running and understand everything that was going on. So tip number one is definitely to master one platform before you move on to the next one, and then after you move on to the next one, master that one before you add an additional platform. You really want to avoid jumping on to all platforms on board at once because it can be really overwhelming just adding one, let alone multiple different ones, and you can make a lot of business mistakes along the way that can be costly to your business. Things like missing orders, things selling at the same time, not getting to your customers in a fast enough time. Maybe you just don't understand the app and don't know how to help your customers. So definitely make sure that you master one before you move on to the other one. In my opinion, eBay, if you can master that one, you can master all platforms. In my opinion, and in my experience, it is the most tedious, most detail-oriented, takes the most amount of time. Luckily for me, I started on eBay, so all the other platforms seem easy, but if you're currently on another platform and want to jump onto eBay, that's definitely a big one to master. So this brings me to tip number two, which is if you are curious about different platforms, you're not really sure which one to start on, you can kind of dabble in all of them to decide which one you want to master, but I definitely wouldn't say jump head in to all of them. So for me, I mastered eBay and Poshmark, and then I just started dabbling into some other ones, just posting just a few items over because I really wanted to see what the shipping process was like for each one of them and which items sold best, and just kind of get the overall vibe of these apps or these websites to decide which one I did want to master first. So if you want to dabble in a couple, decide which ones you want to move on to next. I would say that would be a little bit different than diving in head first into one. So tip number two is to really research and understand what each platform offers, so you can decide which one's the best for you. Things that you might want to research or are, like I said, maybe at least getting one order in the platform so that you can see how the shipping process works, how offers work, what the return process might be. You also want to research things like what kinds of items sell best on that platform. So for instance, if you're thought about moving on to Grailed, maybe you've heard about it, you can only sell menswear on Grailed, which is something that I did not know when I first heard about Grailed. So make sure to do your research on these platforms to decide which one you want to master, and if you do want to dabble in them a little bit, I'd say that that's fair, and just make sure you don't jump so far deep into it that you're causing yourself business mistakes. But if you want to get one or two orders on the platform to decide if it is a platform you want to master and then continue on into, I think that that would be a good business decision for you. So for instance, I tried Tradesy. I've sold one thing on Tradesy, and I can tell you just from being on the platform and the listing process, the shipping process, everything that goes into it so far, it just wasn't for me. I know a lot of people sell on Tradesy and it's a great platform for them, but for my business, it just wasn't something I could see myself going into long term. So I have chosen not to master Tradesy. And I wouldn't have, thought up that wouldn't be a platform for me without trying it out a little bit first. What I would say is the most important when it comes to researching these different platforms is that it's something that you can already take from your existing business and just bring it over to another platform. I wouldn't say to take on a platform necessarily that adds a whole new category. So for instance, if you don't currently sell men's clothing, I don't think that moving on to Grailed would be a great option for you, because that would create a whole nother obstacle, a whole nother set of processes that you have to make. And I think the important thing about having multiple platforms is that it should be easy and just bring more income in for you. But if you're already selling men's clothing, what you can do is simply cross-post those items over onto Grailed and then have additional income, additional eyes on the products that you already have, and there isn't additional listing involved. Which brings me to my third tip, which is get a cross-listing app or use a cross-listing website. So there's a couple different ones of them out there. I think the top ones that I hear about are List Perfectly and Vendu. I think it's all just personal preference, which one you use. From what I've read and the tutorials I've seen, they're both great and they work relatively the same way. I personally use List Perfectly. I really like that one for a lot of different reasons, but I will let you do more research into that to see which ones you want to use. But you do have to pay for these cross listing platforms, but it is so worth it. Don't take the time to manually cross post your items, especially if you have, like 100 or more. It's going to take you hours to get those cross listed, whereas you could, a minute or less per item with these cross-listing tools. So if you're currently thinking about getting on to another platform, or if you're already moving items over there, really, really dig deep and do some research into a cross-listing tool, because it will save you so much time and it's totally worth the money to get those items moved over quickly. My next tip for you is when you are considering branching out into another platform, to consider keeping your branding the same way and then your processes the same way. So like we mentioned in the last tip, it's really important to do things that you already have going so that you're not adding more stress onto yourself. So for me, when I went on to Poshmark, I actually started using a different name than I was already using in my eBay store. And then I quickly realized that that was a bad business decision. And I changed my name to match each other on both of those platforms. So the reason I did that was because a lot of my supplies I use are color coordinated and branded for my eBay store. And I didn't want to have to go out and purchase a ton of other things for Poshmark. Now, you certainly don't have to have branding, different materials for shipping, but as your business grows, that might be something that you want to do. For me, I already had it in place, so now I can use the same thank you stickers, the same design of my thank you cards. All I do is change the link on each of them, and then the same color tissue paper. That way I'm not having to buy extra supplies and just add more stress to myself to keep my inventory up with both platforms. I can just use the same materials for both platforms. I would also suggest, in the spirit of uniformity, that you would keep your processes pretty similar. So for me, I'm listing the same items that are on eBay, onto Poshmark, and they're not separated. All I'm doing is creating more eyes on my product. And for this reason, all of my inventory processes are the same for both. So the same inventory number that's in my eBay store is the same inventory number for the item in Poshmark. And I think this uniformity really keeps things squared away, that you're not adding more stress to yourself. And it's kind of just a no-brainer that when something sells, you know right where to go and where to get it. So keeping your processes, especially inventory, the same is, for me, has been super successful and something I would recommend that you do. I wouldn't suggest that you have different processes. Along those same lines, my next tip for you is to have a process for what to do when your inventory sells on one platform. How do you take that inventory down from another one? How do you make sure that you keep inventory of all things together so that one is not selling and then remaining on the other platform? So for me, I have everything saved in my custom SKU on eBay. I make sure to put all platforms in that custom SKU that this item is listed on. That way, when something sells, I can go onto my eBay listing, go to that SKU number, know all the platforms that I need to take it down on, and then I also have that inventory number saved for when I need to go to ship the item. The next tip I have for you is to automate everything that you possibly can to make things easier for you so that being on a different platform doesn't get overwhelming. So for instance, I pay someone to share my Poshmark items because I'm already on multiple different platforms. I'm already dealing with a large income on eBay where I'm having to ship out multiple orders a day, and I don't want to add to that stress by having to share items. So anything that I can automate in any of the platforms, I absolutely do that. You can do things like having your eBay unpaid item assistant turned on, getting your return policies automated, your feedback automated, having someone share your Poshmark closet for you, things like that. Just anything that you can do to make each process more streamlined, easier, and that you're having to take less time into that so that you can really focus on mastering each of those platforms. I do have a video on things you can automate on eBay, so if you're interested in seeing that video, I will link it somewhere up here. And then the very last tip I have for you is that if any of these platforms are super stressing you out, they might not be for you, and you should really consider shutting them down, at least at this time. Maybe it's not the right time for you. If you're feeling overwhelmed and there's a breakdown in your process and you just feel like you can't get a grasp, it's probably not the right time, probably not the right platform for you, and you can stop it for a while. Put it on vacation mode, turn it off, delete your listings, whatever you have to do. But if something is not working for you, it may just not be right for your business. So those are all the tips that I have for you. I hope that you will consider, if you're not already, jumping onto another platform to diversify your income as long as you've already mastered one. I hope these are helpful if you've been thinking about it, or if you're currently on multiple different ones and maybe these are some things you haven't thought about. Give me a thumbs up if you like the tips in this video. Drop a comment down below if you have some tips that I didn't mention. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you on the next one.